Hello and welcome to the North Coast Journal Preview, where we take a look at the stories being followed in the current edition of the North Coast Journal. I'm your host, Dave Frank, and I'm joined this week by Thad Greenson, news editor, and Jennifer Fumiko Cahill, arts and features editor at the North Coast Journal. Welcome, guys.
Hey, Dave. How you doing? Nice to see you again.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, I had to take a week off, unfortunately, but our team held down the fort, so thank you guys for doing that. Hopefully everything's been going well during this cold and rainy-ish holiday weekend. Hopefully you guys got out there and had some fun despite the weather.
We did. And we were in my household, we were rooting for rain after sundown on the 4th to drown out those fireworks, keep our dogs sane.
So if you were sitting around angry that it was raining, the fireworks weren't like, it's bad. That is the one.
If only I had that power, Jen.
Just raining on your parade.
So not to get off on too much of a tangent, but I did see that there's a pretty huge fire that started southeast of Sacramento. And last I read, they weren't sure, but they thought it may have had something to do with the fact that people were lighting off fireworks. So I don't know if that's been determined or not, but it's a thing.
I had not seen that, but it is definitely a thing. One I worry about every 4th of July here.
Well, speaking of fires, I think that's a good segue. Thad, what is on the cover of this week's North Coast Journal?
It is, yeah. So this week we have a story by Cal Matters, which a quick moment of appreciation for Cal Matters. It's a nonprofit, nonpartisan outfit based in Sacramento that is entirely dedicated to reporting on California politics and issues and making them understandable. They operate on a really cool nonprofit model that is basically a content sharing model that they create all this wonderful content and then they share it with any other news organizations in California that want to run it. So folks who follow our stuff regularly will see a fair amount of Cal Matters sprinkled in there because they have some wonderful perspective on statewide issues and some really thorough reporting. So this week specifically, we have a story by Julie Cart at Cal Matters looking at rising PTSD issues, post-traumatic stress disorder issues with California firefighters. And for me, this was an issue that was, so much of climate change and its impacts in California, I think, have been really thoroughly reported, especially wildfires and the growing threat. But this was an aspect that I didn't know anything about and hadn't considered and was completely off my radar, honestly, until I found the story. And it's hugely distressing.
Yeah, so thankfully, I appreciate the fact that you're able to share it with me before we speak. And so I got to preview it a little bit, which, again, like I'm confirming what you said, who even thought that this was as problematic as it really is? But I think that one way to frame this is that I thought was really interesting is that 2020 was the worst fire season on record. 8,600 blazes, taking 33 lives, burning 4% of the state. Mm-hmm. They don't call them mega fires now; they call them giga fires because of their magnitude. So as things have gotten worse and worse from that perspective, one of the underreported until now stories is how it's impacting those fighting the fire. So can you tell us a little bit about what the story was broad, but one of the highlights, I guess, is that the low light is that it's very severely impacting firefighters, and the highlight is that there are steps to do something about it. So tell us a little bit about the impact, and then we'll talk a little bit about sort of the mitigation.
Yeah, so as you said, kind of the unthinkable huge fire is now, what was a handful of years ago is now kind of becoming the norm. I forget the exact number, but I think it's 8 of the 10 largest fires in state history have been in the last handful of years. So, as we've seen this shift to just longer and more intense fire seasons, we're asking more and more of our firefighters. And so, For instance, CAL FIRE used to work a fairly short fire season, and their firefighters used to be able to work a week or two on and then a week or two off, and so they would work a very intense season still, but they'd be kind of a couple weeks on the front lines, then a couple weeks back at their homes to kind of take care of family issues, decompress a bit, and then go back to another fire line. And as the fire season has kind of grown more intense, grown longer, firefighters just aren't able to do that anymore. I think it's well documented that California, the West Coast in general, has a shortage of firefighters, and so we're asking more and more of them. So that kind of creates this perfect storm where just as the fires become more demanding, and as you noted, there are 33 deaths in 2020, which is something that wildland firefighters don't really get into the line of work thinking they're going to encounter, that kind of human toll, so as the work has become more grueling, they're having less time off, less time away from those fire lines to decompress, and the toll is really mounting, as the story makes really painfully clear. We're seeing higher rates of firefighters going out on medical leave for stress issues, and then also tragically much higher rates of firefighters in acute mental distress, whether that's proactively seeking help or committing self-harm and suicide.
So one of the interesting parts of the article, and we're not going to do it justice today, we're just going to kind of scratch the surface, but one of the interesting parts of the article is that it talks about how the CAL FIRE doesn't track the incidents of trauma, PTSD, but they are aware that it's an urgent problem. So they're actually taking some steps to do something about it. What can you tell us a little bit about what some of those steps might be? There's at least an awareness now going on that we really need to do something more than currently.
Yeah, so as you alluded, CAL FIRE has not tracked kind of the data that needed to really understand this trend that we're on, but there's a movement towards starting to do that. So I mean, that's a huge first step, is kind of tracking the numbers of people who are reaching out for help, who are reporting kind of that they are in distress, and diving into the reasons for that. But as far as what we're doing, kind of as a state government to take better care of our firefighters, is making more professional and peer support available to them. A big step is just honestly a cultural step. There's a quote in the story of saying that essentially, and I'm paraphrasing, but that for wildland firefighters, typically the culture has mandated that you don't admit to feeling stress, or don't admit to feeling to acknowledging the loss and the tragedy that you're seeing kind of on a daily basis, and that instead you just kind of keep going. And so there's a cultural shift underway of, I think, CAL FIRE leadership really saying that, firefighters, in order to do the job, really need to take care of themselves. And that, really comes with addressing the trauma that they're experiencing, and the stress that they're experiencing. And then there's kind of the, as I think we're seeing in a number of other frontline capacities or first responders, I think there's more of a holistic wellness element that's coming into play. And so they're instituting, in addition to the support programs, peer and professional, there's also a number of kind of retreats opportunities that have become available to CAL FIRE fighters who have reported being in some state of mental distress, and that they're able to go with trained professionals and both really talk about what they're experiencing, both with their families and then also on the front lines of these fires, but then also do various wellness exercises like yoga and things that to kind of help center themselves physically and mentally.
Well, thank you. And that, like I said, there's so much more in there, but one of the, I think, silver linings is that their senior leadership is aware of the trend, the change, the impact, the need, the demand, the desire, and they're actually taking positive, proactive steps. So it's something that I guess we'll continue to follow in the future. So thanks.
Definitely. And another thing that I think can't help but help is that the state over the last 2 years has allocated much more funding to CAL FIRE to increase the ranks of firefighters. And that's it's clear that that's a part of the issue too, is just the season being too long and too intense, and really needing to get these folks some time off of the front lines to kind of recharge and recenter before going back out to fight these fires. So that will help too.
Right on. Well, thank you again on that. How about what else is going on in the news beat this week? What else have you got in this edition?
Yeah, so we also have a story this week, kind of continuing the saga of Humboldt County's Auditor-Controller. So I don't think I need to rehash the full story for our regular readers, listeners, and viewers, but our long embattled at this point Auditor-Controller was voted out of office very decisively on Election Day, with her challenger Cheryl Dillingham getting 70% of the vote. And in California's kind of weird prolonged primary season, that means a really long lame duck period. So all folks who are voted out of election in June, or out of office in June, then have this kind of 6-month period where they're still in office before their elected successor takes over. And so that was the case with the Karen Paz Dominguez, and in a pretty unprecedented move from what we've been able to find. We're still kind of doing some reporting on that aspect of it. But the county negotiated a severance agreement with her, or a separation agreement is I think what they officially coined it. But essentially paying her to not come to work, to stop the job she was elected to do 4 years ago. So the specifics of the agreement are that the county, I think, is paying her the salary she would have received over the next 6 months until leaving office in January, as well as a payout for medical benefits, a reimbursement of some legal fees that she incurred while on the job, and then a $15,000 lump sum. So the total package is, I think, a little bit north of $90,000. And then also agreed to dismiss the lawsuit that the county had brought against her as kind of a cross complaint with the lawsuit brought by the state. So that's kind of where things stand. It's like I said, as far as we can tell, it is, while it's quite common for public employees to reach separation agreements with the entities that they work for and kind of get paid to go away, especially if they've brought some kind of claim against their employer or something like that. Seems pretty unprecedented for an elected official to reach an agreement like that.
So there's a lot more in the article, as always, but I think one comment from Supervisor Madrone sort of frames the import of like where we are now. And I'll just quote, he says, "Given everything under consideration, this was the best way to help all parties and the county move forward with its affairs." Mm-hmm. So can you speak to that? There's a little bit in this article about what that actually implies. Like what else is next? Like they're going to roll up their sleeves, dive in, and try to get where?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's very clear to anybody paying attention that the top reaches of county government had lost all faith in Ms. Paz Dominguez to perform the functions of her job, of the position she was elected to. And the county has missed a whole host of financial reporting deadlines with the state. And so things kind of came to a head in a budget hearing recently when the CAO, Alicia Hayes, kind of told the board, like, look, as we're planning this fiscal year 22-23 budget, we don't know how much money we have. We could have $50 million in the bank. We could be $30 million in the hole. And that's really distressing. And so I think that the idea here is to move on from Ms. Paz Dominguez, to bring in the person elected to succeed her, Cheryl Dillingham, who has 30 years of experience, and for better or for worse, let her try to sort out where the county is, try to bring its books up to date as quickly as possible. The board agreed basically to operate without a budget, with kind of a placeholder budget for the next 3 months, and reevaluate where it is in September. And so that's kind of where things stand. And yeah, it's kind of unprecedented fiscal times for Humboldt County.
Yeah, so it's an interesting summer, but there's a little bit of light here now that people can maybe align and harmonize and try to get the digging out started.
Hopefully we will all start rowing in the same direction.
There you go. That's the metaphor I was looking for. Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Thad. This was really insightful. And like I said, there's more in there to check out. And we'll look forward to hearing more about this in future.
Great. Thanks, Dave.
Hey, Jen, what is going on this week in the Arts and Features beat?
I know it doesn't look like it because of the weather, but it's summer. And for me, that means it's pie season.
Nice.
The other pie season, because there's also fall pie season. And then there's spring pie season. And then there's winter pie season. It is always pie season, is what I'm trying to tell you. But right now it's like summer pie season, which means strawberries. And I know, I see some of you with like, you know, juice on your chins. I know that you've been out gorging on strawberries, looking for the Seychelles stand at the farmer's market, etc. But gorging on strawberries is one of the joys of the season. I have a personal favorite strawberry thing, and it's fresh strawberries, but not totally fresh strawberries. As much as I like a fresh strawberry pie with lots of whipped cream and just raw strawberries all over it, I am a sucker for strawberries Romanoff. Have you had strawberries Romanoff? It's kind of old-fashioned.
I have not had it.
Never had it.
Strawberries Romanoff is great because for a minute it was everywhere. It was the trendiest thing in the world. And then, much like Duck L'Orange, it went the way of the Nehru collar. So, Romanoff, the Romanoff that it's named after, is not related to the Russian czars.
Gotcha.
Right? So, however, it is named after a shady dude who had a restaurant on Rodeo Drive in like the 40s and 50s in Hollywood, who claimed to be a Romanoff.
Oh.
He was that brand of shady. So, he was apparently a very eccentric character. And it's named after him, but did he invent it? Or did Escoffier? Escoffier actually invented it, and it was strawberries, or fraise américaine. So, I'm sorry, Madame Castles, my 7th grade French teacher. That's as good as it ever got. But Romanoff basically ripped off the recipe and named it after himself, even though actually Romanoff was not really his name. He used it to tell people that he was a descendant of the Romanov family, the Romanovs. Nobody bought it. But apparently he met all kinds of classy, fancy Hollywood people and made this strawberry recipe that is very popular. He also apparently used to eat lunch every day in the restaurant with his dogs.
Oh, no.
With the dogs at the table, not with humans. I mean, he's winning me over because I love a scammer. So the strawberries Romanoff that I'm familiar with is basically strawberries macerated, so just like soaked. You cut them and you soak them in Grand Marnier and sugar. And Grand Marnier being that cognac-based orange liqueur. Cointreau is also nice. And it's just lovely. There's nothing like fruit that's spent just a couple hours in hooch. And then it kind of makes the flavor more kind of jammy. And you've also got the flavor of the orange liqueur, and strawberry and orange is just lovely. And it produces this juice that is like, in my last moments, pour this down my throat. It's just fantastic. So I was craving the Romanoff, and it's also strawberries Romanoff. Talk about your high reward, low effort foods. Everyone's like, oh, you made strawberries Romanoff. In fact, it took you 5 minutes. So I thought, what if I made a strawberry pie with that instead of just raw strawberries? And then I get to enjoy it. But the problem is kind of the juiciness of it. So I reserved the juice on the side and spooned it over on the individual plates. And the base of the pie is basically a vanilla pudding. And years ago, a friend gave me a book by Nicole Reese, and it's a book called Baking Unplugged, and it's just all different recipes you can do without plugging anything in. Just wooden spoon and bowl, basically. It's lovely. And anyway, it was her book that got me into making pudding. And pudding with a little more cornstarch is pie filling, or can be pie filling. And this is where I need to talk to you, David, because just before we started recording, David confessed he has never made pudding. Or have you ever eaten homemade pudding?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. It's good. As soon as I saw it, I'm like, oh, we're making that.
Yeah. Pudding is so easy. We have all been lied to. We have been told that pudding is so hard to make that we can only make instant pudding. But in fact, pudding's wicked easy. Look at Thad's like, no. And once you make homemade pudding, I mean, the little box puddings have their place. What's up, pistachio? But once you make the homemade pudding, you'll realize, oh my God, I could have been living like this the whole time. Chocolate pudding. I once weirdly brought chocolate pudding to a barbecue, like a giant vat of chocolate pudding. And I was feeling bad about it. I was like, this is awkward. And now my hosts have to find bowls and spoons for everyone. It's just like I've made a mess. But then later I found the hostess in the kitchen just eating pudding out of the giant bowl that she had snuck away from the group, and I felt good about that. So yeah, start making pudding. And then once you become a pudding person, now you're making cream pies. You just add a little more cornstarch and you're in cream pie land. You just blind bake a crust, which is when you bake it empty. In the words of Ina Garten, store-bought is fine. And then you can fill it and then kind of use your imagination. And this pie I really enjoyed because it was some of my favorite things. Homemade vanilla pudding, yay, and strawberries Romanoff. I should also say that right now, when gas prices are insane and, you know, the rent is too high, the Cointreau and the Grand Marnier are a pricey, say like $20-25 for a very small bottle. A thing that I often do when I'm baking is I go and get the little airplane bottles from the liquor store. Those are great. This requires a little more hooch. And the truth is that, do you remember triple sec?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You remember your 21st birthday? Everybody bought you insane shots that had like triple sec and other Dick Kuiper items in them. And yeah. Ooh, I'm going to hydrate after this. Anyway, that stuff, triple sec for this recipe is fine. Totally fine. When you're doing strawberries Romanoff and serving them just on their own, I'd say splash out for the booze. But the cheap stuff, honestly, is great. And if you're a person who just wants to do like, you know, some rum and strawberries and add sugar and like, you know, a little fruit zest, that's another thing. You can sort of be creative and be flexible with the recipe.
So it's like a margarita versus a Cadillac margarita. It's still going to be good, but sometimes you need the caddy.
Yeah, I don't know. Like if you're in your house and you're like, all I've got is this weird bottle of mezcal somebody left here. I don't know. Give it a shot. It can't be bad. Famous last words.
We're making pie. This was great. I'm glad you like made this a summer thing because everybody loves strawberries. Why not strawberry pie? We're going to do it. We have to do it.
It's also a good way to use ugly strawberries. I have them halved here, but if you have strawberries that are, you know, misshapen or all different sizes or whatever, you just cut them smaller, cut off the pieces that aren't working, little dents and bruises, and have at. Waste nothing.
And speaking of waste nothing, you said that sauce at the end is nectar of the gods, so you spoon it back over your pie.
Right. Spoon it back over the pie, or tell all your guests, I'm so sorry. There just wasn't that much juice, and then you drink it in the kitchen.
Yeah. I'm sure it makes a good mixer. So we have minimal time left. Do you want to give a plug for any other Arts and Features beat topics?
I do. For one thing, you should check out the Get Out column this week because Meg Wallwild has a great story about how you can get in on the Humboldt portion of the world's biggest marble hunt. Oh, no. All over the world during the month of July, people are hiding marbles, sometimes giving clues online, and then people are hunting for them. I like it because it's chaotic and it's weirdly like connecting with people you'll never see probably. It gives money to local artists because we have a lot of people locally making beautiful glass marbles, and you can pick one up for like $10 and then go hide it somewhere. It also is that wonderful like hiding stuff is fun, right?
Yeah.
But you can't go, like, you hide Easter eggs for kids and you have to kind of go easy on them. You know, you can't make it too tough, but marbles, you can go crazy. I strongly suggest you get into it if you are a mischievous person.
Well, right on. Thank you so much. I'm going to check out North Coast Journal and figure out how to participate in that, because that seems like fun, and I want a $10 marble. So, Thad and Jen, thank you so much. We really appreciate you in a big way.
Thanks,
Good to
David.
see you guys again. Oh, you're most welcome. North Coast Journal is available on newsstands now. Pick one up. Stay informed. Also available online 24/7, so you can check them out even right now. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you guys for being here, and we'll talk to you again next week. Take care.